I was packing boxes on my hands and knees on the hard cement floors, and with somebody else standing next to me, kneeling next to me, we're packing, and I said, you know what we need? Knee pads. 'Cause this is killing my knees. And this guy packing alongside me said, we need packing tables. And I was like, oh, that's the most brilliant idea I've ever heard. And the next day I went and bought packing tables, and it like doubled our productivity.
You are listening to the Serial Entrepreneurs and Business Leaders podcast, where we study billionaires and simplify their nuggets of wisdom.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Serial Entrepreneurs and Business Leaders podcast, where we break down what it is that has made these billionaires so successful. Today's billionaire is without a doubt one of the most successful people the planet has ever seen. Imagine making $2,489 every single second. Well, this man does. And as a result, he has accrued a net worth of $121.1 billion, making him the richest man on the planet. At the age of just 56 and owning 11.2% of perhaps the most relentless company in the world, is this man set to become the world's first trillionaire? Today, we are looking at Jeff Bezos. Okay, so the key principle of Jeff Bezos that seems to define his stewardship of Amazon can be summed up in two words, just two words: customer obsession. Amazon believes that you have to start with the customer and work backwards.
One of the things I've always found is that you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it. And I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room.
Going above and beyond to ensure that the customers have a great experience and that they are happy. Jeff said in 1999,
But I believe that if you can focus obsessively enough on customer experience, selection, ease of use, low prices, more information to make purchase decisions with, if you can give customers all that, plus great customer service, if you can do all of that, then I think you have a good chance. And that's what we're trying to do.
it's about an obsessive attention to the customer. In fact, so when we're looking at this interview, the interviewer kept trying to talk about other things other than the customer, but Jeff Bezos was having none of it. And he kept bringing the conversation back to the customer over and over and over again.
Isn't it, to some extent, a certain amount of corporate arrogance to assume that you can come into these businesses, which you have no experience in, and virtually overnight enter a huge variety of different businesses?
You know, when we first started selling books 4 years ago, everybody said, look, you're just computer guys, you don't know anything about selling books. And that was true, but we really cared about customers, and now we know a lot about books.
So next time you're having a difficult customer, or you're thinking about whether you could do something that goes the extra mile for a particular customer, you might want to think, what would Jeff do? When it comes to decision making, Jeff has some interesting opinions. Instinct, intuition, and gut feeling are how you must make the most important decisions.
So if there's one message I can leave you with, for me, what I've done over the past 28 years involved a lot of leap of faith, always going on my gut feeling. When things sort of seemed awkward, that was often the case to know, hey, we're on the right track here. And just stay motivated, stay dedicated. We never asked anyone's opinion. We just did what we liked to do. And it sort of seems to have worked out quite nice for us now. We don't know where we're going. I often say I'm on this open road.
Jeff also does believe, and Amazon believes, that great leaders have great instincts.
You have to use heart and intuition. There has to be risk-taking. You have to have instinct. All the good decisions have to be made that way.
But what's really interesting about Jeff Bezos' opinions, which contradicts all kinds of stuff that comes from motivational speakers particularly, is his opinions on sleep.
And so then on sleep, I get 8 hours of sleep. I prioritize it. Unless I'm traveling in different time zones, sometimes it's impossible, but I am very focused on it. And for me, I need 8 hours of sleep. I think better. I have more energy. My mood is better. All these things. And think about it. As a senior executive, what do you really get paid to do? As a senior executive, you get paid to make a small number of high-quality decisions. If the quality of those decisions might be lower because you're tired or grouchy or any number of things. Now, it's different if it's a startup company. I mean, you're really, when Amazon was 100 people, it's a different story, but Amazon's not a startup company.
When it comes to meetings, Jeff has a very specific rule.
We try to create teams that are no larger than can be fed with 2 pizzas. We call that the 2 pizza team rule. No PowerPoints are used inside of Amazon. So every meeting, when we hire a new executive from the outside, this is the weirdest meeting culture you will ever encounter. And new executives have a little bit of, culture shock in their first Amazon meeting, because what we do is somebody for the meeting has prepared a 6-page memo, a narratively structured memo that is got, real sentences and topic sentences and verbs and nouns, not just bullet points. And it lays out and supposed to create the context for what will then be a good discussion. So, and then we read those memos silently in the meeting. So it's like a study hall. And we do that, everybody sits around the table, and we read silently for usually about half an hour, however long it takes us to read the document. And then we discuss it. And it's so much better than the typical PowerPoint presentation. I definitely recommend the memo over the PowerPoint. And the reason we read them in the room, by the way, is because just like, high school kids, executives will bluff their way through the meeting as if they've read the memo. Because we're busy, and so you got to actually carve out the time for the memo to get read.
Finding your passion is something that Jeff is extremely passionate about.
You guys will find that you have passions, and having a passion is a gift. I think we all have passions, and you don't get to choose them. They pick you, but you have to be alert to them. You have to be looking for them. And when you find your passion, it's a fantastic gift for you because it gives you direction, it gives you purpose. You can have a job, or you can have a career, or you can have a calling. And the best thing is to have a calling. And if you find your passion, you'll have that, and all your work won't feel like work to you.
Okay, there are a lot of leadership principles at Amazon. This is what Amazon and by extension Jeff believes makes a successful leader. And you better believe that if a leader can be successful at Amazon, the chances are they're a very good leader. Customer obsession, ownership, invent and simplify, are write a lot, learn and be curious, hire and develop the best, insist on high standards, think big, be biased for action, be frugal, earn trust, dive deep, have backbone and commit, deliver results. Don't worry, we're going to break down
The ones that stand out.
skip customer obsession for now, and we kind of touched on that already.
Principle 2, ownership.
Reminds me slightly of Jocko Willink's principle of extreme ownership.
Take ownership of everything in your world, the good and the bad. Take ownership of your mistakes, take ownership of your shortfalls, take ownership of your problems, and then take ownership of the solutions that will get those problems solved. Take ownership of your mission. Take ownership of your job, of your team, of your future, and take ownership of your life.
Principle 3, invent and simplify.
I believe that every business needs to be constantly reinventing itself in order to survive.
And all of our senior executives operate the same way I do. They work in the future, they live in the future. None of the people who report to me should really be focused on the current quarter. I always tell people, sometimes they get, we'll have a good quarterly conference call or something, and Wall Street will like our quarterly results, and people will stop me and say, congratulations on your quarter, and I say, thank you. But what I'm really thinking is, that quarter was baked 3 years ago. Right now, I'm working on a quarter that's going to reveal itself in 2021 sometime.
Principle 4, are right a lot.
Because one of our leadership principles is that good leaders are right a lot. And it sounds kind of like, well, great, but is there some way that I can practice being right a lot? And you're not going to be right all the time, but I do think with practice, you can be right more often. And I've observed people who are right a lot, and I notice a few things about them. The first is that people who are right a lot, they listen a lot. And people who are right a lot change their mind a lot. And people who are right a lot, they seek to disconfirm their most profoundly held convictions, which is very unnatural for humans.
The more mistakes you make, the less you will make in the future, as long as you reflect on those mistakes and think to yourself, what did I do wrong there?
Often making mistakes will create pain, but interestingly, you can learn from this pain.
Remember this, the pain is all in your head. If you want to evolve, you need to go where the problems and the pain are. By confronting the pain, you will see more clearly the paradoxes and problems you face. Reflecting on them and resolving them will give you wisdom. The harder the pain and the challenge, the better. Because these moments of pain are so important, you shouldn't rush through them. Stay in them and explore them so you can build a foundation for improvement. Embracing your failures and confronting the pain they cause you and others is the first step toward genuine improvement. Remember, pain plus reflection equals progress.
Innovation is something to be proud of. People like invention. But the problem is, they don't like failure. And you cannot have invention without failure. You already know it's going to work. It's not an experiment. And only through experimentation can you get real invention.
Principle 5, learn and be curious.
My favorite leadership principle is learn and be curious.
It really gives us the awesome capacity to find out the root cause of issues.
To go deep so that we can then help our clients.
To learn and be curious really is the cornerstone of what makes AWS so great.
Principle 6, hiring and developing the best.
In my experience, having a great team around you is everything in business. There will be many areas that you are not great at. Maybe you're great with people, but you are terrible at data analysis. Perhaps you are a brilliant software engineer, but you couldn't sell a product if your life depended on it. Or a marketing genius, but you hate numbers. Finding people that excel in a specific area that is important to your business, but you are weak in that area, and getting them to buy into your organization is fundamental to organization success.
It's incredibly hard to get people to take bold bets, and you need to encourage that. And if you're going to take bold bets, they're going to be experiments, and if they're experiments, you don't know ahead of time whether they're going to work. Experiments are by their very nature prone to failure, but big successes, a few big successes compensate for dozens and dozens of things that didn't work.
According to Amazon, if you think small, then you are creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. In my experience, the best results, even when we're talking about small tasks, if you implement SMART goals, that will drastically increase your productivity and the results.
Principle 8, bias for action.
I think stress, you can be, I think one of the things that's very important to note about stress is that stress primarily comes from not taking action over something that you can have some control over. So if I find that some particular thing is causing me to have stress, that's a warning flag for me. What it means is there's something that I haven't completely identified, perhaps in my conscious mind, that is bothering me, and I haven't yet taken any action on it. I find as soon as I identify it and make the first phone call or send off the first email message or whatever it is that we're going to do to start to address that situation, even if it's not solved, the mere fact that we're addressing it dramatically reduces any stress that might come from it. So stress comes from ignoring things that you shouldn't be ignoring, I think in large part.
This also applies to decision making. Amazon says many decisions and actions are reversible and do not need extensive study. We value calculated risk taking.
Principle 9, frugality.
Jeffs believes that if there are only limited resources in a project, then an organization will adapt, invent, and become resourceful in order to make it work. Whereas a company with abundant resources can become complacent. Therefore, Amazon is about accomplishing more with less.
Principle 10, earn trust.
The earning trust principle is particularly focused on listening attentively, speaking candidly, and treating others respectfully. What they value in leaders is people that are actually self-critical vocally. I know many leaders that are very obsessed with the perception, creating a perception that they know everything, that they're always right. But Amazon disagrees. They say you want to be vocally self-critical, even if it is awkward to do so.
Principle 11, deep dive.
Dive deep is a principle that seems pretty ambiguous, but it's really about diving into the details, auditing regularly, and being skeptical when metrics and anecdote differ.
Principle 12, have backbone, disagree, and commit.
And when you told your parents you were going to quit D.E. Shaw, where you're successful, making presumably a fair amount of money, and you told your wife, Mackenzie, that you're going to move across the country, what did they all say?
They were immediately and reflexively supportive right after they asked the question, what's the internet? With your loved ones, you bet on them. You're not betting on the idea. You are betting on the person. And that was, and it's one of those decisions I made with my heart and not my head. And I basically said, I don't want to regret, when I'm 80, now 90, I want to have minimized the number of regrets that I have in my life. And most of our regrets are acts of omission. They're things we didn't try. It's the path untraveled. Those are the things that haunt us.
Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe if you get the chance and give us a 5-star rating on Apple if you could be so kind. We hope you really enjoyed this and got some useful lessons out of it. See you soon.